Thoughts?
Well, it wasn't a disaster for about 50 minutes. They played a very, very good first period. The second period, yeah, they give up that long stretch of poor play, but then they do a great job responding. The power play comes through. Christian Dvorak with a great play to make it 4-2. I thought even the first half of the third period, they were playing. They weren't sitting back. They were attacking. They were creating chances. You had Zegers nearly scores on a really big save. Tippett hits a post. Like they're pushing. They're playing. And then you have the second half of the third, and obviously into the overtime. And look, Garnet Hathaway's mistake, it's egregious. You have to put that puck into the net. It's one that, look, I saw him in the locker room after the game. Everybody was out of the room. He's still in full uniform, staring down at his skates. He knows he screwed up, and he did. You can't make that mistake. And the fact that he's been so bad this year, especially offensively, was playing a bit better after the scratches, but still 1 goal in 40-something games, not acceptable. No one's going to cut him any slack. But what I will say is that this loss isn't just on Garnet Hathaway. Look, he needs to put the puck in the net. He knows it. Everybody knows it. But there were a bunch of other players who screwed up at the end of this game, too. You have Noah Juleson takes a penalty after Rick Tocchet earlier today says, discipline. I might scratch somebody if we're not disciplined. And I get it's coming from a place of wanting to defend Jamie Drysdale. But time and place, man. You can't take that penalty when you're trying to protect a lead in the third period. That's a first period penalty, or that's a game is out of hand one way or the other penalty. You just don't take that extra penalty. That leads to a goal. Then you have, and I think Rick Tocchet, not by name, but I think he was more or less pointing this out. Like Travis Sanheim gets burned on the final goal, and he needs to play that better. However, Travis Konechny tosses him a grenade of a puck. Like Konechny cannot just toss that back into his own zone. He needs to either eat that puck or skate with it rather than put that puck in the hands of a teammate and putting him in a bad spot. Now, Sanheim should have played it better. Obviously, he should not have gotten scorched by Keller, but Konechny puts his buddy in a bad spot, and that's on Travis Konechny. Owen Tippett completely blows the coverage on the game winner in overtime. Like they get that back to 2v2. That's not a 2-on-1 by the time he scores, and Tippett just doesn't recognize quick enough that he can cover that guy, that the other guy is fully covered. He is in control. Tippett has to cover Keller, and instead he gives him the space to have that shot wide open in the slot. Like Garnet Hathaway, yeah, he's going to get a lot of grief for this, and you got to put the puck in the net. Like he deserves a lot of grief for it. However, this was a full team effort of choke, and no one should be let off the hook for it.
No, I fully agree, Charlie. And you mentioned some of Tocchet's post-game comments. I'm just wondering, this is now 7 out of 8 they've lost. Sure, they get a point tonight, I guess. The loser point never been more aptly nicknamed than tonight, I believe. But what was the coach's demeanor? Because this goes beyond penalties or anything. It's just another undisciplined game for an undisciplined team.
Well, I think his demeanor essentially was this team clearly doesn't know how to win. That in pressure situations, all too often, they shrink. And that's what they did. I think his word was sunk. They sunk in pressure situations. I think he meant that both figuratively and literally. I think literally he was specifically referencing the power play goal that they scored to make it 4-3. Everybody just sinks. They don't go out and challenge Genther, who's a great shooter. Instead, they sink. Nobody goes out to block the shot, and then he rips one, bounces off somebody, I think, but he gets one past Ersson, makes it 4-3, puts them in that pressure situation to begin with. But they also sunk figuratively. This was a team that, collectively did not rise to meet the moment. And again, the truly frustrating part is that they played a really good game most of this game, but it doesn't matter if you're not coming through in the key moments. And in this game, far too many players just not only did not rise to meet the moment, they sunk against the pressure of the moment.
The sinking, like literally, is something you've heard me the last couple of times we got to watch games together in studio. My comment is constantly, why is it so easy for the opponent to get through the neutral zone, especially like if the Flyers have a lead? Like maybe clog it up like it's 1996. what the hell are they doing defensively that's just like basically conceding the blue line? It's like they have 5 Andrew McDonalds out there at all times.
Yeah, and again, I think this was more of a third period thing because I did think that in the first and second, except for that stretch of maybe 6 or 7 minutes, they did do a good job of checking the neutral zone. They were tracking back well. There was a lot of back pressure. They were making it tough for them to move forward. They forced a lot of dump ins, but then they have these lapses, and we've talked about it all year, Bill. We've been talking about this since October. The frustrating part about this team's brand of inconsistency is that it's not that they're inconsistent from game to game. It's that they're inconsistent from period to period. They're inconsistent from shift to shift. They'll have a 10-minute stretch where they look like world beaters, and then they'll have a 10-minute stretch where they look like an AHL team. That's the inconsistency, and you saw it rear its head in this game in the third period.
I'm mad about this for a number of reasons. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm mad for Sam Ersson. Like, Sam Ersson, I thought played a good game, and then you look at his line at the end, 22 of 27 for an 8-15, gives up 5 freaking goals. What did you think of Sam tonight?
Yeah, I liked his game for the most part. I will say that I thought on that third goal, and I do think it changed direction. I think it hit somebody going through, but I didn't. I thought one thing he was real good for most of this game was working through traffic, which has been a major problem of his all year. On that goal, he reverted back to the habits we've seen this year. He gets caught leaning, and even if that puck changes direction, maybe he stops it just by being in the right position, even if he can't see it. But because he's leaning towards the near post, he's a little bit out of position, and it puts him in a tough spot to stop that goal without being able to see it. Overall, though, I thought he was fine. Like, this was not a bad Sam Ersson game. This was not the games that we've been seeing from him from mid-December until last week. I thought he did enough to give the Flyers a chance to win this game, and they should have won this game. I'm not going to go so far as to say that he was failed by his teammates, because he could have made a save. He could have made one of those final few stops, and they could have won the game because it comes up with a big save. And in the end, you're paying the goalie to make big saves. But I do think that they let him down. I think he was not given the support at the end of the game that he should have gotten, and that's disappointing, especially given how good he was 2 nights ago. In terms of, you could even say that he carried them to that win. Him and Travis Konechny, it would have been nice if they would have been able to push him to a second straight win. Instead, he's looking at a low 800 save percentage again on a night where I don't think anybody would put him in the top 5 of people to blame for this loss.
No, I fully agree. Go ahead, Petey.
Charlie, I want to ask you about a guy we always have to talk about here on PHLY after a postgame is Matvei Michkov. And Michkov, you look at, for me, it's his season high 7 shots on goal. So I actually saw him drive the left lane, and he gets a shot off on goal. So there were some small things, but you look at the stat line again. He plays 12 minutes. He's -1. Didn't really add to the score sheet again. Is this a game that he can build on and maybe start to see some of the things we hope to see and expect to see from him offensively?
I think it can be. I think he was physically assertive in this game. I liked what he was doing in terms of separating with the puck from the defense, which has been an issue for him this year. I liked the way he was asserting himself physically without the puck. I thought he was asserting himself on the forecheck. He was providing back pressure. No, I liked a lot of what I saw from Michkov in this game. And it is disappointing to me that he only finished with 12 minutes, because I thought he had a performance worthy of a lot more minutes than 12. Look, I get that he hasn't earned Rick Tocchet's trust, and especially late in games, he's not going to get those minutes. I get it. But you would think that there was some way for him to get more than 12 minutes in this game. Some way to get him out there for a few extra shifts, especially in the first 2 periods when it really looked like he was rolling.
Charlie, Tocchet did something he hasn't done maybe at all this season. I can't remember the last time he called a timeout. Yeah. I have been kind of harping on that through the losing streak, and tonight he does call one after that second Utah goal, but it seemed like a few minutes of building towards that first one, and they were just running around completely out of it for parts of that period leading up to that first Utah goal, and then they come back, score 36 seconds later. Do you think he should have called that timeout earlier, and do you know why he's resistant to use the timeout typically?
Yeah, I mean, timeouts are things that I can't get myself too hyped up about. I do think there is an element of it where, Flyers fans in particular, are really into the timeout because we all still remember the Peter Laviolette
We lived
timeouts.
through Lavi. Yep.
Yeah, like it's become like a legendary thing. So it's not something that I necessarily put a ton of stock in. That said, I mean, he calls the timeout and they do halt it. It's 3-2, and I think Utah maybe had another couple good shifts, but then after that, the Flyers do slow. They start to stem the tide, then they ultimately take the 4-2 lead with a strong Dvorak play on the power play. So if you're a believer in the timeout, it ultimately worked. They don't score another goal again until the third period collapsed. So I guess props to him for calling the timeout there. If you want to say that that's what matters, it's one of those things where I have trouble putting too much stock into it mattered this much, because in a way it did matter tonight in that they did stem the tide and then they end up losing anyway because they have another breakdown late in the third period. So I don't know. I get why it matters to you. I get why it matters to people. It's just not something that irks at me too much.
It was Charlie. A lot of these questions I wrote when I was like, "Oh, hey, what do you think about timeouts?" Because they won, they won 4-2 and everything's cool. Hathaway scores, it's all good. But unfortunately, I really felt your pain tonight as a writer because I had to start almost entirely over. I gotta believe you felt the same thing. One of those other questions is about offense from defense, Charlie. Another thing I've been crazy about. They get 5 points from the defense tonight. That's a lot more than they typically get. Has this been kind of all right, we need to start doing something else to create scoring chances and getting the puck back to the point, and York crashing down, like that first goal that York scores, it's off of a Sanheim rebound. He's in the slot and York crashes down to get that rebound. Is it more activating the defense? Do you think that's kind of become something they're trying to do, or is it just tonight? Yeah, they got 5 points out of the D because they did.
I just think guys are maybe getting a little bit more confident in the system, particularly defensemen, because I don't think the Tocchet system is, and Petey might be able to speak to this better than I can, but I don't get the sense Tocchet system is especially overly conservative in terms of no, the defense would just stay up at the points and don't pinch and don't activate. I don't think that's what he necessarily wants his defensemen to do. I just think the defensemen early in the season maybe weren't taking the risks that the system allows them to take, and now they're maybe taking them a little bit more. Drysdale had a couple decent plays on the power play, but Tocchet even noted after the game, he's first couple of power plays we were doing what we're supposed to do, and then we regressed back to looking bad again. So it's again, this whole thing, it's one step forward, one step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and that's what this game was. As you said, I guess they get a point. They're 3 out of 4 points on this road trip. They're playing Colorado, so they're probably going to lose that game, but who knows? Maybe they can spring an upset. But it's such a painful loss because, number one, the way you lose it, you're up 3-0, you're up 4-2, you blow it late. Also, you are playing Colorado in 2 nights. You win the first game of the trip against Vegas, so you got those 2 points back. If you beat Utah, especially in regulation, but hell, even if you find a way to win it in overtime, then
who cares?
You've won 2. You won 2 out of your three road trip games, coming off of a season high losing streak. Then you can lose 6-3 to the Avs, and it's no big deal. Now you lose the Avs game, and then suddenly that Vegas game feels like the outlier. And then you go back home, and it's we've lost. What would that be then? 8 out of 9 if they lose to the Avs. And then it's just a continuation of the losing streak that you thought you put in the rearview mirror by that strong performance in Vegas. They had an opportunity to do that, and they blew it tonight. That's what it boils down to.